All right, so you've done Splunk for a while. Let's talk about the attack matrix. The attack matrix, this has been going on for a while, the 10 or 20 years. People have tried to organize what attackers do into well-defined steps. There was the Lockheed Martin kill chain, and then there were other ones. And this is basically the latest version of this. And not every attacker does all these things, but these are the categories of things attackers tend to do. So they do reconnaissance, and then where they inspect their target and try to decide what to attack. Then resource development, where they prepare attack machines or software or something. Then somehow they gain initial access. They trick somebody into running code with a phishing attack or an email attachment or something. Then they gain the ability to execute code somewhere in the target network. The next thing they need is persistence, so a reboot of that machine will not cause them to lose control. Then they need to escalate privileges from a limited user up to administrator so they can harvest more data off that machine. They have to avoid defenses like antivirus and such. And let's see if I can figure out how to get this thing to scroll to the right. There it is. Okay. A little clumsy, but anyway. Okay. And then they want to steal credentials from that machine. They want to find stored passwords or Microsoft single sign-on tokens like hashes and such. Then do discovery of services like scan networks and find out what else you might want to take. And lateral movement through the network, where they take over one machine and then they install some kind of agent on another machine and take control of it and another until they hop through your network, penetrating into the area where the most valuable stuff is. They collect data, whatever they came to get. They have command and control servers out on the internet, which the infected machines communicate with to get commands, to issue commands to make them do things. And then somehow they have to steal their loot. They have to exfiltrate. If they've gotten on your network and stolen something valuable like credit card numbers, they have to get it out. And as I mentioned in the boss of the SOC, you have network traffic controls. So you will not let your web server make an outgoing connection. And in a proper network, you have network segments and firewalls and such, so that wherever the really important stuff is stored, like your financial data, it's not able to directly send to the internet at all from that region. It has to go through some choke points. So it often can be quite a difficult task for the attacker to figure out how to exfiltrate the data that they've stolen out. This, by the way, is how this all started because of the 2010 attack by China on Google. Around Christmas time in 2010, Google discovered that the Chinese attackers had penetrated their network and they had been in there for months and they were stealing information from inside Google. And the founders of Google got very upset. They felt very betrayed because they just expanded into China and they thought China was friendly, and they were very horrified to find out they were getting hacked by these people they thought were their friends. So they went public. And that's what created the modern field of incident response. Until then, people had kept secret that they were all getting hacked by China. And most people thought that if you had antivirus and firewalls and intrusion detection systems, you were keeping all the bad guys out, so your network was clean and trusted. And this exposed the awful truth that powerful attackers like enemy military can punch right through all that, and they're in your network. So now you have to get over pretending that you have a trusted network. Nothing can be trusted, and instead you have to have network monitoring to detect when bad things have gotten in, and incident response to limit the harm, just like we have in other areas. Like we don't pretend we have prevented all fires at our buildings. We have fire extinguishers and we have fire alarms and we have fire drills because we accept that our prevention measures are not perfect and sometimes this bad thing will happen. And so you have to plan to respond to it. So anyway, then you exfiltrate your data and then have what other impact you're trying to do. Those are the tactics, I think. Let me make sure I got it right. Tactics and techniques. Yeah, those are the tactics. And so they give them numbers and organize them. And with each of those tactics, there are possible techniques. And there's just a lot of them, and they've sorted them into categories. So if I start with the matrix is where it started. When I first saw this, I thought this was impossibly complicated and nobody could learn it. And then I realized I do know most of these techniques, and really my students should know them too. So I just, this is what everyone should get familiar with this. Pen testers learn this, and all the defense tools you get now are attached to this. This is part of the growing field of security metrics. Security is unfortunately not a science. It's more like an art, because we can't say your network has a security level of 5. But if you buy this $1 million product and add it to your network, you will move up to a security level of 6. And that means you'll lose this many $1 million less per year. It's not remotely like that. We can't really show that adding more security products really stops attacks. The people with the maximum security still get hacked. It's not very scientific at all. And this is part of the process of trying to develop organized, scientific, reproducible plans. And so you define these techniques and tactics, and then you can look at mitigations. Controls are judged by how many of these they capture, and groups, your attack groups, are now rated by what they do. So the original one that started it all, APT1, is the military of China. And here's the techniques they use. Not everybody does all these things. They use these particular techniques, and you can get a clue of who hacked you by what techniques they use. And that's important, because then you can predict what they're going to do next and what defenses will be more effective and so on. So all the various threat researchers have built up a lot of information about this, and there are also rated families of malware and such that they use. So this is the organizing principle. And so I made a series of little puzzles here, like here. You say, what tactic uses this technique, port knocking, on virtual, and so you can just do a search at a page and find out which one of these includes port knocking. So let me give it a try. If I go here, there's a search engine. Here we are. Port knocking. I think it is for persistence. All right, it's still, all right, there. Here's port knocking. So it is a sub-technique here, T1205, and sub-technique tactics. Okay, defense evasion, persistence, and command and control. Use this. And so it said use the lowest correct answer. Should be the lowest number here. And I think it's persistence. 3. Here's command and control, persistence, and what was the other? Defense evasion, persistence, command and control. Right. So the lowest one is 3. And that's correct. So this is just puzzles. You practice looking here. And when you get, I think, 5 in a row correct, then you'll get a flag you can put in the scoring engine. So these all work like this. By the way, it's real easy to cheat on these. I had a student notice that, and I said, good, I made special ones where instead of actually doing it, you have to cheat, because this is a JavaScript running in your local browser. So you can go in there and figure out how to change the number correct, or even find the flag and stuff. Anyway, there's a group of them for groups and various techniques and tactics. And then there's this thing called the navigator, which is kind of interesting. This navigator is sort of like an online spreadsheet. So let me get my, I wrote some, yeah, here we are. I wrote a walkthrough. Good. Let me try doing the walkthrough and clear out these other tabs. Okay, there's my walkthrough. And let's see, they do change it now and then. So sometimes I have to update my walkthrough, but I think we'll be all right. So I want this on one side and the instructions on the other side. And I show you what this tool does. All right. Okay. So now I want to create a new layer. And I want it to be enterprise attack. But unfortunately, I didn't want to do that because it's now version 15, and my instructions are a few years old, so I'm on version 9. So let me delete that and try again. I'll follow my instructions more carefully. Create a new layer, and then more options. Okay, now you can get versions, and I want version 9, which was new when I wrote this. Okay, and the domain is enterprise. Okay, which is the only domain that existed when I wrote this, but anyway, that's the end. Now I can create this layer. Okay, it creates a layer like a spreadsheet, and here's all those techniques and tactics in here. Now what you can do, you can select a group. There's a whole bunch of buttons up here, and there's only 3 of them we're going to use. And those are going to be there. This one here, the search and multi-select, and a couple over here. So the search and multi-select button is what lets me choose a group or other entity to put here. And what I want is threat groups, and I'm going to look at APT 41. So I can go down here to threat groups and find APT 41 and select. And when you do, it now highlights the techniques used by that advanced persistent threat attacker. So you can see them. Now you can compare 2 of them this way. So I can also, this layer is now about APT 41, so I can rename it. APT 41. Okay, that's what's shown there. And, okay. And now I can make another layer and compare 2. So I'm going to make a new layer and give it APT 29. So I make a new layer, going to here and here, and version 9 attack, it remembered, that's nice. So I have the, this is going to be APT 29. So I go to the search and I go down to threat groups and I find APT 29 and select, okay. And now I change this name to APT 29. All right, up 29. Okay. So now I have, what I can do is give it a score of 2. And I forgot to give a score to the previous one, so let me do that. There's a scoring button here where you can assign a number to techniques used by this group. And the scoring button is over here next to there. That's it. So I'll give this a score of 1. And that makes them turn red. Okay. Now I'll go to the next one and give it a score of 2. Okay. And that makes them turn red. So I could compare them this way, but you can do an automated comparison of the 2 groups now by adding a calculated layer. So it's plus, create layer from other layers. And now it labels this one A and that one B. So you can now put A plus B. Yep, A plus B. If it's, well, I think I have to select this stuff. Okay, domain version 9. Okay, now I can put A plus B. All right. And I think that's all I have to do. I have to scroll to the bottom and create. There we are. And this is it. This is now the comparison of 2 groups. So things that are used by a score of 3 means both groups use it. A score of 1 means just 2 means the second one uses it. A score of 1 means the first one uses it. So now you can answer questions, comparing groups and tools and defense measures and various things here. So that's all. And so there's a bunch of challenges here where you say how many techniques are used both by Lazarus and APT 29. And by using this tool, you can find that out. So, that's what I wanted to show you. This is just various ways to make students practice looking it up and reading the terms. And really, anybody in security should really be familiar with most of these things. You should know what they are and be aware that what these basic attacks do and what kind of things would be defenses against them. It looks like an overwhelming amount of information, but it's really not that much if you've done like some server administration or something. You've dealt with all these things, remote sessions, ways to hijack them, finding the browser bookmarks, just all these techniques are things students should just get some practice learning these terms and what they mean. And that's it. That's all I wanted to show you about the attack matrix. There's a bunch of flags you can turn in for there if you want to. All right.